Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you, as always, from the Xtreme Studios in the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. We're getting ready to do a stream here, RDV from the Great Midwest, and I. We're going to be covering Carl Weathers, who recently passed away at the ripe old age of 75, 76-ish. Um, it's one of the things that we, want to do to kind of honor people that we enjoy and we like. We don't necessarily do it for everybody, but Carl Weathers is somebody we've talked about a lot since the Xtreme Movie Show, as we
Mhm.
like to say here, is an 80s based show. And RDV, I'm going to rant here for a minute about Carl Weathers, and I'm going to get ready to ask you what your first impression of it is. But I want to take a step back because I think the younger generation, and that includes a lot of, maybe a second or even a third generation. I think no one from The Mandalorian, because he's still been active here. I think his last recording is going to be a Super Bowl commercial that they're going to change up. But for me as a kid, seeing Rocky in a drive-in, I will have to say this. This is a guy that I saw physically before I saw Schwarzenegger, right? And
Yeah.
when I saw Carl Weathers come on screen, just an absolutely insanely gorgeous looking man, incredible physique. He was a man, capital M, and the way he based his character Apollo Creed off of Muhammad Ali, but kind of not one notish where he's just yelling and screaming all that time, that the suit wearing, the this and that. Rocky's such a tremendous movie, and the second movie is pretty good too, but he was so good in that it helped Rocky become the massive cultural hit that it is and continues to be to this day, with of course the Creed sequels and all that too. But I think the most interesting about Rocky with Carl Weathers in it is just not how insanely good he's in it or what his physique looks like. It's the fact that he said, shit, Rocky's such a badass movie, I have to go out there and keep making hit after hit after hit, which he continued to do and stayed active for another 40 plus years too. But this guy just reeks of charisma. He has it. I just always found him to be very good no matter what. I think he was in a TV episode of Kung Fu, which is a favorite show of mine I used to watch, and a bunch of
Yep.
other things too. Where Eagles Dare, I don't think he's in that, but he's in one of those. Force Tougher than Ever, perhaps. And then we start, of course, seeing him as a regular, heavy, just kick-ass kind of guy in the 80s. So let me ask you, what's the first memory you have of him, and what are your initial thoughts about Carl Weathers?
Well, first memory of him is this Rocky number one. Remember
Okay,
watching
was it a
that?
kid, or I mean,
This is back when I was in my teens, late teens. I was watching ESPN, and were playing the Rocky movies, which I had never really seen before. So
right?
here comes Carl Weathers on there, and as Apollo Creed, and it's crazy. Just after watching those movies and learning how back in high school, he was involved in like judo, boxing, football, all that stuff, and so and so it kind of makes more sense why he's able to really get in touch with Apollo Creed, where the guy believes his own hype. It's kind of he's kind of like I love the fact that he's kind of like he's the thing that Rocky wants to destroy. I mean, not destroy, but basically beats. From
Yep.
the champion, and he kind of looks down on Rocky, and this guy's going into this movie with no acting before.
Yes.
He came from playing football. He was on the Raiders
Yep.
in the early 70s, and I said it's him coming in and just I remember watching an interview with him and Dolph Lundgren, and talking about he's like, man, I didn't think I was going to get this role at all, but like Sylvester Stallone launched my career. If it wasn't for Stallone, I never would have got this. But he said I was so nervous, and then here comes in Dolph Lundgren, this tall, lengthy guy, and he's like, well, and he sees how he gets the role. He's like, if this guy can get the role, I can get the role, pretty much. And just an overall enjoyable person to not only see on screen, no matter whether he's in. Currently, recently was in The Mandalorian last year.
Hmm.
But then also just seeing is an Action Jackson, seeing whether he's playing in Commando, or not, sorry, not Commando, Predator,
Predator.
and just like I said, whatever he's on, he just a very nice guy and just very, very positive, very happy all the time, smiling, laughing, just having fun,
Mm.
and I love that he hits so much emotional range, and then honestly, I believe he put a lot of himself into his character, especially Apollo Creed. So I mean, as far as the whole enthusiasm he shows on there, I feel like he was just a big kid going through life, man, just enjoying it life,
Right.
as and he got more and more blessed, just with all these different roles, stuff, health, such a great thing. So, uh, yeah, man, like I said, it was a pleasure watching him through the years and
Mhm.
seeing him pop up on The Mandalorian. I was like, what? Because at this point, I kind of thought he kind of gave up on acting a little bit, or at least for movies and stuff. So to me, when they said he was getting the Mandalorian, to me that was a big deal because
Yes,
I was just like, this is Carl Weathers. Holy crap, where'd he come from? And he's
that's
acting
right.
again. And I just kept thinking, like, man, if he starts acting on TV shows, his popularity is gonna soar again. And who knows, maybe he'll start making more movies. Because before the Mandalorian, he was in Happy Gilmore. It's Chubbs.
Chubbs Peterson. That's right. The
Yeah,
Golden Bro.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. The thing too is when you think of Carl Weathers, I think the childlike nature, enthusiasm you mentioned is pretty interesting because to me, when I saw him in Mandalorian, I'm not the biggest fan of obviously Star Wars films and those types and everything. I know
Hmm.
this is a spin-off. I think this is probably a level above a lot of the crap that's been put out there, relatively speaking, by the way I see it. So I gave it a shot only because he was in it, and so I thought he was fine. But when I looked at him in Mandalorian, I'm like, God, this guy's in his 70s. One, I like the fact that being older, he can have some serious work and not just be one of those bent over wizard looking kind of guys that sits in the back and they're going to
Hmm.
croak if you blew on him hard, he'd knock over. I look at him. There's something about Carl I always thought in all the roles because he plays this. I'm not going to say hyper masculine male like an Arnold over the top, but definitely a very masculine figure that I thought he aged very gracefully, not just physically, but he carried himself like he had been a king for 30, 40, 50 years. And he was just expected to do that way, not out of arrogance, not out of anything, but not like an oaf. And one of the differences that you and I have talked about in the Extreme Movie Show, reviewing action films from all decades, is we said that a lot of the guys from the 80s, like a Norris, 70s to 80s, let's say, or Arnold, they put in the work, not just with their physiques, but everything to get to the point where they could do it on screen. So when you saw them, you could feel that, hey, Chuck
Hmm.
Norris, he might have been 170 pounds, let's say, or whatever, but you look at him, he's legit, right? Carl
Yeah.
Weathers is legit with his physique. He's not just a pretty looking guy who might be good looking and put on some weight, ran a cycle or whatever as I
Yep.
like to say, and then it walks around. You go, oh, they got a great physique. They just don't look like they're comfortable with their bodies. Not uncomfortable, but they don't know how to use it. Carl Weathers is such a natural, right? And so Mandalorian, I agree with you. And I start thinking, well, wait a minute. I remember he played like a version of himself, I think, on Arrested Development, and there's like the soup kind of quote thing going on where um, I'd watched some of that because I think was it Jason Bateman that was in it or something, and
Yeah.
he's playing like a really cheap part of himself. I thought that's pretty good. That's kind of funny. And then also, I had almost forgotten he was even active because you never know with health what's going on, right?
Hmm.
But in the TV show Psych, he's in an episode or two in that. And I thought, man, this guy aged well. He's sitting at the table playing chess. And I thought, he's the kind of guy that you watch age and grow up, and he did it in a very distinguished manner. And that's one of the things too. Not only you look good in a suit, you look good without a suit on. It just he didn't seem like he slowed down or whatever. It seemed like he just matured very well. And that's
Oh
hard to
yeah.
say. Some people don't do that.
Sure. And he came back a couple of years later, in 2017, did 13 episodes of Chicago Justice. He said he was just kept plugging away, and even if he just if he took like a one spot on one episode on the show, he did it. He's doing Law and Order. He he did a cartoon series. He appeared as Duke Firestorm in an animated series called Explosion Jones, which I've never heard of, but he just kept popping up everywhere. He appeared, and then in 2019 he surprised us again with as being Combat Carl, in Toy Story 4. And like I said, he just kept coming up and just doing more things. And then said the last thing he was working on was The Mandalorian, which he did 9 episodes of that. And when he appeared on the screen on The Mandalorian, he stole the whole entire scene, that whole episode. Every time he appeared, and I don't give a shit about Pedro Pascal and Mando and stuff. And I was like, this is freaking Carl Weathers here he's talking to. You
Yeah.
know, I just loved it. His natural charisma, his natural just swagger he had. You know, he was the guy. He's a very very good guy. He always played the loyal guy. The face, the baby face.
Mhm.
There was only one time I remember in his career where he actually played a heel, and it was on the episode. What was that? In Good Times.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he played
Yeah.
he was the
Sweet
angry
girl.
husband. Yeah, yeah, with his wife. I think his wife cheated on him, and yeah, I said like he had range, but like I said, but he best played Blade was known for Apollo Creed. And honestly, it's his whole. I think about Carl Weathers, and it's like he just, and then it was announced that he died on the back on the 1st February, and I was just watching Rocky Four the night before, so
Yeah.
like if you see him go limp in that movie, it's like, and then like, wait, he's dead. What? The next day, I was
Yeah.
like, ooh, that hit me. I was like, no, you guys are pulling my chain here. But Action Jackson is a movie we've even reviewed on this channel, but we definitely going to review it. We reviewed Predator.
Yes.
We've done most of the Rocky movies, including the Creed movies. I think Action Jackson will be probably next on the list soon. After, once we're getting through these top tens.
Yeah, we're currently doing the top 10 of the 1980s, just 10 films that we think are worth discussing
Yeah.
and talking about, doing some
Yep.
matchups and all that, revisiting material. And you're absolutely right. So the 80s is that hyper aggressive, hyper masculine kind of picture that you would get a lot of, which you don't
Mm-hmm.
really have today. And I know that, for example, I've been on record as saying that I thought that the trailer for the Roadhouse movie is not a bad looking trailer. But that being said, it's like you just can't replace the old one, even though that's kind of schlocky in its own way. There's just
Yeah.
something about the fact that it was in the 80s, that when a lot of people are doing these things, Canon and all their films, and that was the prime time to be one of those kind of characters. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate because I think people are dying for some really solid action, as evidenced by, despite the last episode being pure shit, in my opinion, the Reacher franchise has been very solid, and that hopefully that'll continue. But people are looking, I still think, for a simple kind of throwback, physical, manly type of lead in a role. Not a consensus maker
Yeah.
or the Jean-Luc Picard type of ensemble cast and all these things. People want individual characters they can latch on to, and I think that
I would
with all the
as
world building going on today, they just all these companies say, okay, what's going to be a Huffing Let's do a
yeah.
spinoff.
With his character dying, Paul Creed in Rocky Four, I kind of wish that wasn't the case, because I would have loved to see what his take would have been in the Creed movies.
I agree, and Creed's son being kind of out of wedlock, or how they alluded to it.
Yeah.
When the Creed movies first started, I'm gonna be honest with you, I did not like that, because I thought that kind of shit on Carl Weathers' character there,
Yep.
Apollo.
Yep.
Because Apollo, I might disagree with you a little bit with the way I thought you described him at the beginning of this Carl Weathers tribute stream. Is that I thought he did a very nuanced job of portraying the guy. Yeah, I don't think he talked down about Rocky. I think he just treated him as an afterthought, because, again, some guy in his 30s that's a club fighter, has never done a pro thing, is going to be a walkover. And the differences at that level are so huge and striking. You just have what they
Well,
call puncher's chance, which is what
Rock
Rocky got. Then that was the whole idea of
when
it.
it came to Rocky and Apollo Creed in that first movie, that's basically, it's the way he acts is the same way that Rocky acts when he goes against Clubber Lang in the third movie.
Exactly.
And I love, they said, it's just Apollo Creed's character in there, and Carl Weathers, he's like, no, it's like, you lost the eye of the tiger, you got fool yourself. You basically pulled out what I did in the first movie.
I think one of the best lines from that scene isn't the whole eye of the tiger and the training montage and all that crap, because you know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
It's when they're boxing, and I think I had tweeted this out, and he's like, okay, he's hooking. And he's like, damn it, man, what's the matter with you? This guy will knock you into tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. He's like, there is no tomorrow. I know that's kind of schlocky, but
Yeah.
the emotional intensity that he's able to bring to it in that gym that looks real kind of shitty and old school, you can feel that. It works. And a lot of times you get TV episodes today or movies that have these speeches. It's like, oh, just shut up. I don't want to hear you talk. You haven't earned it, over several films to be able to do that and chew somebody's ass out. And so it was nice to see him pivot. And I agree with you in that if you got to see Apollo Creed's take, maybe he would have been older or something. Because I tell you, it was a Creed, I don't know if it was Creed 1 or Creed 2, but when you saw the back of Drago and it's his son on the that, you're like, holy shit. And the problem with the Creed movies that you and I discussed in our reviews is, it's not that we don't like Creed's son, but we don't really give a shit about him. He's a kid that has all, and yes, he's supposed to figure it all out, learn it and everything too. But when Rocky's in there, he steals it. Drago's son, you feel that whole thing with Drago Senior there, and what happened there before, because of all the movies. So to me, as they went on, it's like, who cares? I mean, there's just, to
Yep.
me, no emotional depth to it all compared to the Rocky movies and characters like Apollo. It's not even close.
Yep. Like I said, Carl Weathers, I said, I wish he was in more stuff. Honestly, I think he's a very, very, very underrated character. Even he's a supporting character. We need characters like his character coming in and giving the tough speeches, or just being there to back up the person. It's like, we actually, I forget, it was American Ninja 3 or 4 when he's doing the coswork by himself, and then he gets back up.
Hmm.
But I think it's by Richard Roundtree or something. I forget
Oh
what it
no, it's
was.
the other guy. Yeah, it's not
Oh,
Roundtree.
I can't remember what his name is,
Right.
but I mean,
Steve,
like,
I think. Yeah.
yeah. But when that guy comes in, it's like, oh my gosh, like he's like awesome. Now he's got backup, and they're gonna go kick ass. Like that's what I love. It's like we love growing up in the '80s playing the games like Dungeons and Dragons, or not Dungeons, but Double Dragons, where you actually
Double
had a team.
Dragons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could do co-op and stuff. I Carl Weathers was that guy. He was the Murtaugh to Arnold Schwarzenegger, or the Apollo Creed to Sylvester Stallone. Both who Arnold, Stallone, and even Gina Carano put out heartfelt messages. Back on the second.
Yeah, they're floating
Uh,
around now too. Stallone's
yeah,
thing was really nice too. I saw Gina's.
yeah, and everything Gina said is basically what I've repeated. He was such a nice guy. He basically didn't look on anybody. He knew he was a star, but he didn't let the fame get to his head. He was a guy that would root for you in your corner.
Yeah, one of the things too I want to bring about Carl Weathers too, going back to the '80s. You mentioned Action Jackson. That was a movie to try to kind of put him on the top. That was probably a couple years too late, in that by about 86, 87, everything went guns and explosions, and then there was a switch into comedy, especially with the older guys like Schwarzenegger at the time, and even Chuck Norris to a certain extent. And so um, I don't know why it didn't catch on, because it's a kind of a fun, interesting movie and tailored towards him, and it's kind of hip. The other thing too about him is that I mentioned to you this before. What we've mentioned about a lot of themes of stuff that we see, and kind of talk how they're related. And that's what we do here on the Xtreme Movie Show. Even in TV shows, I said that there was a lot of you touch a car, it explodes kind of thing that started in the '70s, really took off with T.J. Hooker and everything in the '80s. But to use T.J. Hooker as kind of a metaphor, you had a lot of cop shows in the '80s, and something like Spencer for Hire that had Avery Brooks in there, an African American guy. He kind of was so popular they tried doing a small spinoff with him as a character, because he was Robert Urick's guy that he could lean on to, or like that, and that was really cool. And the fact that Carl Weathers is so popular, I still remember this to this day. I think it was probably about 85, 86ish maybe. They
Mhm.
tried doing a spinoff. I don't know if they did it as a TV movie, maybe a show or two, a pilot, and it never got picked up. But I thought the name of this was really cool. It was called Fortune Dane. And the reason why I think that's cool, because of the name Fortune Dane, is that you had in like late '85 a release of a movie called Remo Williams, which is based off what's called the Destroyer novels, which there must be over 100 of them, even by that point, forever. And it was kind of like a different kind of James. It was like a James Bond, like a ninja James Bond without guns. That flopped, did not do well, but it's a decent movie. And so you had Carl Weathers coming at the time, and it's like, I just think that 85, 86 time frame is when you thought all things are possible when it comes to adventure movies and people having it. Jeff Speakman with the Lethal Weapon in the late
Yep.
'80s. It was just a really great time. And Carl Weathers, to his credit, not only thrived in it, he was able to go on into the '90s and do other things. You mentioned Chubbs Peterson, the golf pro,
Yeah.
with the hand. I'm not a big Adam Sandler fan. He makes a certain type of
No.
movie, but most people enjoy watching that. I mean, I don't know what you thought about that movie, but
No, actually,
because he was in it is why I went to go see it. It wasn't because of Adam Sandler.
and honestly, we talked about before him being supporting character, being the mentor. That's what he was in Happy Gilmore. Uh,
True.
and I think Adam Sandler recognized his Carl Weathers. That's what he brings to the table, and obviously, and that's why he chose him, because Carl Weathers, like I said, in that movie, he plays Stubbs. He helps Happy out of a bad situation. He ends up losing, but I love it, like the humor and stuff. He's like, and he sees him in the sky. He's playing a piano. He's like, "Hey, Chubbs, you got your hand?" He's like, "Yep, Happy." And there's the alligator with him too, and everything. And it's just, I love it. Except Carl Weathers was like I said, he was the guy that rooted for everybody. He's the guy that lit up, a room whenever he was around. Never personally got to meet him, but from all the stories, people talking about him, people that knew him, you could tell he was the genuine thing. He was the real deal. He wasn't a fake person. He
Yeah.
and in his kindness and his brilliance just shown on every single scene he was in, no matter what movie he was in, whether it's a movie, TV series, or just being talking to people. He was a genuine, real thing, and that's what we should all aspire to be: is people that are kind to others and they pay it forward.
Yeah, one of the last things here I'll say about the Carl Weathers is that, physique aside, looks, charisma, I mean, a man among boys. I do kind of consider him a good actor. I could say he's an action star as well. I think he has those credentials, but he wasn't really limited to one thing. He could do a lot, and it would be very easy to go, God damn it, that's Apollo Creed up there in the sky in a friggin' Adam Sandler movie. Boy, he reached an all time low, reaching for toilet humor kind of Sandler films, right? Um, but that being said, I don't think it bothered him, and I don't think that's really how it was thought of. He decided, hey, why not be in this? And he took a positive mental approach to it and did it. I don't think he screwed up or anything with it too. And same
Oh,
with the Arrested Development character and some other things too. And the Mandalorian, I think too was again. I'm like, damn it, I gotta watch it. Carl Weathers is in this, and I'm like, okay. They kind of structured the story a better, in my opinion, as a TV show and Mandalorian than the movies and all that too. And again, a big part of it is Carl Weathers. So when you got somebody that's got a whole lifetime of stuff, it's really incredible to think that you've got somebody like him. I go, man, he's a good one that's going to be missed. I think so. It's one of the reasons why we'll do a tribute stream, and in this case with Carl Weathers, I think it's definitely something
mhm.
we've been thinking about. We're kind of shocked that it just kind of happened. It seemed like out of the blue too. So let me ask you this: any other final thoughts, things you'd like to share about
No,
Carl
I think we covered it up, and like I said, go check out if you haven't checked out Predator. Check him out in that. Check out Action Jackson as well, and obviously, if you like Star Wars, check out the Mandalorian. He's in there, and Rocky movies.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely be bringing up some more here over the next few months here on the Xtreme Movie Show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for letting people know that we exist. That's always a great thing that you spend time with us and let people know. It's the best thing you can do. It's always appreciated. I'm your host, Rob, for RDV. I'd like to say thanks for watching, listening. Have a night. Stay extreme. Good night now.